お前を切ってやる。うわ
A bunch of exiles are being transported to Tsushima Island, and they beg their captors to free them on account of the massive storm. The villains agree to this, but the exiles take over the ship in a hostile battle. To make matters worse, they start fighting among themselves, but Kuchi Jinzaburo manages to bring some order. He also frees the bloodthirsty pirate Oni Takemaru so that he can lead the team to Tsushima. They eventually reach their destination and run into Princess Teruhi, who invites them to some hospitality. Everyone feasts on their meals, while the rich man Cho tries to act tough in front of them. Now, Kuchi confronts Teruhi about her intentions, and she reveals that the Mukuri army will soon invade the island, which is why she needs the exiles to fight for her. The gang is against this, but they get imprisoned soon after. Meanwhile, Teruhi goes to find comfort in Otaki and a bath. As the prisoners try to figure out their next move, Kuchi thinks back to his past and missed opportunities. Suddenly, Otaki is killed by the Mongol soldiers and Teruhi is taken as a prisoner. The exiles take this opportunity to escape from their cells, but Kuchi decides to kill the warriors as he simply wishes to fight a war. An intense battle follows as the overpowered samurai faces off against the invaders using his epic Gike style. He manages to kill all his opponents, thus sending the enemy away. The next day, Teruhi convinces Kuchi to help her protect the island in exchange for a reward. Suddenly, her messenger Kano arrives and says that the Mongolian invasion has officially begun. A narration explains how the Mongol Empire invaded multiple countries to extend their dominance. Now, Kuchi is summoned for a conference, but it's basically a friendly meeting organized by the Seoul community. The team tries to rely on their alliances for support, but Kuchi ridicules them and gets angry. This leads to him getting kicked out of the meeting by Emperor So. Later, Kuchi tries to learn about Tsushima's geography and realizes that it is split into two halves. After a detailed discussion, the samurai is able to draw out a map, and it catches the attention of his old buddy Shoni Kagesuke, who had served with him previously as a member of the Kamakura clan. Shoni reveals that he's sending 3,000 soldiers to Tsushima, after which he gives Kuchi his clan sword. The warrior says he's going to Hakata for 7 days and will return with reinforcements after that. Teruhi worries that Kuchi will also leave, so she tries to act like a damsel in distress to convince him to stay. However, news of the Mongols invading through the Sasu Bay area breaks out, and it causes a lot of panic, so the army makes their way forward. Teruhi wants to join the battle, but her father tells her to remember her bloodline, as she will be needed to raise children later on. Kuchi spots the army's strength to be 1,000 warriors and tries to warn Emperor So about it, but he ignores his advice and moves forward. Unfortunately, the Mongol army unleashes a barrage of arrows that gives them the advantage. The army puts up a fight, but then the army launches bombs as part of the surprise attack. This eventually leads to So and his son getting killed by the Mongols. With the enemy gaining the advantage, the troops try to retreat, but Kuchi shows up in the So family's armor to suggest another tactic. He is met with hesitation, but eventually summons his other exiles and motivates the troops to engage in a fierce battle. He is joined by Shiraishi, Oni Takemaru, and Hitari, who put up a tough fight. This prompts Abiru Yajiro to reconsider his stance on the war. Later, Teruhi comes to take care of the injured soldiers and decides to take over from her father, as she is also a samurai. Meanwhile, the battle wages on as Kuchi uses his brutal swordsmanship to dominate his foes. The Mukuri circle is broken down, and then Kuchi returns with the bodies of Emperor So and his son. This makes everyone emotional, especially Teruhi, who has lost her father and brother. At night, a boy named Amushi spies on the enemy troops, while the So army recites their final prayers. Here, Kuchi reveals that he's had a string of failed marriages and lost children. Teruhi suggests going back to the capital, but Kuchi wishes to corner the enemy and defeat them in a night raid. He calls upon the villagers of Sasu for help, and he is joined by Genshichi and his friends. However, Abiru is against this and decides to go back to the capital. Now Kuchi decides to go deep into the island for the surprise attack, and he is joined by Teruhi. However, Genshichi is revealed to be a traitor, and he is about to attack Kuchi, but luckily, Teruhi stops him. The princess gets injured in the process, but Kuchi manages to kill the traitor and realizes that his family has been kept hostage. Teruhi is taken away to be stitched up by Dr. Doen, after which our hero leads his men to a savage raid. Oni Takemaru leads the charge as he takes down the soldiers with minimal effort, and then Kuchi continues his domination. The Goryeo commander, Kin, is alerted about this and realizes that the attackers are low on numbers. That's when Vice Marshal Ryu makes his appearance and decides to join the fun. Some women and children are taken hostage, but luckily, the Toibarai clan arrives to offer support, so Kuchi's men save the innocent villagers. The leader, Nagamine Hangan, meets Kuchi and says that he only helped him because he was ordered to do so by his Japanese lord. Now Ryu takes on Oni Takemaru and dominates him, but Kuchi arrives to save his friend. The swordsmen are about to get into a fierce duel, but Ryu is ordered to return to his marshal Hinden. A priest tells the evil lord that they should set out for Hakata within 7 days, so Hinden decides to invade Tsushima till then. As everyone has a feast, Kuchi notices that Teruhi is still struggling, so he uses some herbs to help her. Then we see Sasamaru, who is getting bullied for being the child traitor, but Kuchi tells him that he must become strong so that he can avenge his father's death. Unfortunately, when the army comes back to the capital, they find it burning, and Teruhi breaks down. Genpachi and Abiru have managed to survive the attack, but suddenly they notice some enemy soldiers arriving. Teruhi isn't able to control herself, so she attacks them with arrows. Amushi spots an entire line of enemy soldiers nearby, so the troops decide to move to Aso Bay. On their way, they come across a Mongol army of fat soldiers that try to distract their opponents to allow their archers to attack from the side. In the middle of this, we see a flashback where Kuchi has a chat with Tokiyaki and his son. However, he gets banished from the family in order to avoid war. Later, he meets Okura of the Hojo clan, who mocks him and leaves. Later, Okura and his men attack Tokiyaki, but Kuchi comes to his rescue. Despite this, he is begged by his own master to surrender, otherwise a fierce war will break out. After that, Tokiyaki is mercilessly killed in front of him. Back to the present, the army is attacked by smoke bombs and it puts Kuchi's men at a disadvantage. Luckily, Abiru gives the soldiers some tips and they overcome their obstacles with ease. The battle wages on. As General Ede Uryan watches from the sidelines, Teruhi and her men try to kill Ede in his sneak attack, but they fail, and the Mongol generals fall in love with the princess. He sends his men to attack the army with guns, and Abiru is sadly killed in the process. Kuchi slashes through the enemy soldiers in a fit of rage, and then he has an emotional chat with Abiru before he dies. Teruhi arrives and is told about the latest casualty, but Amushi arrives with worse news when he says that the Mongols are also coming from the Sasu village. The team meets Oni Takemaru, who has become a little greedy with Cho's wealth, but then he defeats some enemy soldiers and leaves behind a bounty that distracts the opposition for a bit. At night, Teruhi sneaks up on Kuchi, who is having a nightmare, but they get into an awkward situation when he wakes up with her face right in front of him. An old man meets Kuchi and leads him to a supposed emperor after mentioning Nagamine. A chase scene follows, after which Kuchi meets the Emperor Tokihito on top of the mountain. The Emperor identifies Kuchi's sword, and then Teruhi also arrives. She is revealed to be Tokihito's great-granddaughter, and then he gives her a letter that is to be shown to Nagamine so that he can help her defeat the Mongols. Our heroes continue their journey towards Aso Bay and eventually reach their destination, which is shown to be a peaceful sea of mazes. They find some women getting chased by Mongols, so Kuchi prepares to save them, but this is a trap laid by Nagamine. He and his lead diver Tatsu kill the Mongols, after which the general meets the team. Teruhi hands over the Emperor's letter, so Nagamine welcomes them with open arms. He takes the team to the toy castle of Kanatanoki, which is surrounded by a giant wall. Now, Amushi argues with a girl named Sana as they race over the boundary wall. He realizes that it covers the entire mountain, so he relays this information to Kuchi. As the soldiers discuss their plans, Kuchi states that the castle is too big and it might eventually become a hindrance. Meanwhile, Shiraishi and his friend Obusuma discuss an escape from the castle using a silver Mongol badge. Nagamine refuses to abandon his people, so Kuchi claims that the clan only took him and his men in for additional manpower. However, he is ridiculed for his theories and sent away. Some soldiers try to attack him later, but he makes a mockery of them in an impressive display of skills. Things get intense, but Kuchi decides to side with Nagamine so that they can be prepared for an attack. Now Obusuma tells Shiraishi how he met a Mongol lord named Nergui, who gave him the silver badge so that he can gain favor with the Mongols. We see Nergui in action when he reveals to Ede that he has spies working around the Japanese soldiers. Obusuma attacks Shiraishi when he refuses his offer, but gets killed immediately. However, Shiraishi also kills a witness as he wants to be solely rewarded by the Mongols. Nagamine learns about the deaths and suspects something fishy. Then Shiraishi goes to Ede and reveals everything he knows about the castle. This pleases the evil lord and he decides to treat the traitor as his friend. Shiraishi returns to the camp where Kano and Teruhi engage in a song, but Nagamine seems to be wary of him as he had carefully examined the wounds on Obusuma. The next day, the squad is alerted of the Mongols approaching as they have located the castle. An hour away from the attack, Kuchi creates a map of the castle and works with Nagamine to create a strategy. Shiraishi tries to act innocent and offers to guard the west wall, while Kuchi decides to greet the army from the outside. The first wave does well as the samurai is able to sneak up on his opponents and take them down. It's time for round 2, and the Mongols try to use their shields, so our heroes counter them with a stone attack. Oni Takemaru joins the fun by fighting the climbers, but then General Funbishi arrives to help the Mongols. Meanwhile, Shiraishi tricks some of the soldiers and sends them to the south wall, but the others refuse to leave, so he teams up with the Mongols and kills them. As the traitor accompanies his troops to the citadel, they are attacked by some other members of the clan who burn them alive. Then Teruhi sends Funbishi away as their sneak attack has failed. Ede is upset with the situation, so Kuchi decides to make use of this opportunity and launches his own surprise attack. A fierce battle follows, and Ede begins to contemplate the loss of his soldiers, so he decides to retreat. Later, the West Wall soldiers reveal what Shiraishi did, but Kuchi refuses to believe that he is a traitor. He goes to talk to his fellow exile, but is confronted as the villain needs to kill him for the Mongols. The warriors get into a brief argument, after which they engage in a fierce duel. Kuchi manages to win easily due to his Gike style, and then he bids an emotional farewell before chopping down Shiraishi's head. Later, Cho takes Amushi and the others to show them a secret. Meanwhile, Sasamaru tries to kill Kuchi in his sleep to avenge his father, but Teruhi sends him away, after which she kisses her samurai. He wakes up, and the couple is suddenly alerted by an entire group of animals. Kuchi worries that this means a larger army will attack soon. Now Cho offers the other exiles to leave on a boat that he managed to store in secret. However, only Onitakemaru agrees to the idea as Amushi doesn't want to upset Sana, and Hitari doesn't like the boat. Later, General Ko and his men arrive to attack the castle at night, and this time, the army is a lot more powerful. Kuchi learns about Onitakemaru's betrayal, so Teruhi suggests running away, but Nagamine doesn't want to abandon his people. Things get tricky when they think that Shino has arrived with his reinforcement, but they actually turn out to be Mongol ships, as Shino's father had refused to help the So community. All hope seems lost, but Kuchi refuses to give in, and he motivates his soldiers to give it their all. The battle gets underway as Ko and his men begin their onslaught. Teruhi and her warriors struggle against the enemies, but Kuchi comes to the rescue. Unfortunately, Nagamine loses his cool when Tatsu dies in front of him, and he is eventually killed in the middle of his assault. The invasion grows worse as the entire castle is overrun, so Amushi informs Kuchi and the others about what has happened. They realize that the only way to survive is to escape. Amushi unites with Sana to lead the children to safety, while Kuchi holds off the enemy soldiers to allow Teruhi to escape. He starts to struggle, but Onitakemaru comes back to help him out. The rivals unite their powers as they take down countless soldiers, but the Mongols continue to pile up, so the team split. That's when Ryu comes to the battle, and Onitakemaru begins his rematch. Meanwhile, Doen sacrifices himself to save a patient, and even Hitari gets killed after a brief battle. Teruhi is surrounded by Ko's forces, but Kuchi arrives to help her escape. Unfortunately, an explosive bomb hits him, and he falls into the sea. A white shark slowly circles around him and taunts him for failing his mission. Teruhi breaks down as her men are killed, but Kano and Gontaro convince her that Kuchi is still alive. They make their way out, while Amushi tries to fight some of the Mongol soldiers. But he is seemingly killed and falls into the water as Sana swims after him. Unfortunately, Gontaro is also assassinated, so Kano tries to cut the losses by choking Teruhi and distracting the enemy soldiers. A flashback to 4 years ago shows Kuchi being rude to his daughter for planting trees. However, she promises to protect it even when some goons attack her at night. Luckily, Kuchi manages to save his daughter, and then he understands why survival is important. The samurai reawakens, and then the white shark seemingly guides him back to the shore. However, Kuchi witnesses the bloody aftermath of the battle and runs into Sasamaru. The samurai takes his sword and fiercely attacks the enemy forces, while Sasamaru frees the innocent slaves. Now Ryu arrives and reveals that he has killed Onitakimaru, so the swordsmen get into an intense battle. Our hero struggles at first, but he remembers his motivation and regains the advantage, after which he defeats Ryu in a fierce display of power. He gets confronted by Ryu's warriors, but walks right through them and lectures the evil lord before leaving. Later, Teruhi is shown to be alive, and then she is reunited with Kuchi and the remaining survivors. The couple decides the war isn't over and prepare for the next chapter. And that's the end of the show. Like, share, and subscribe to show some love, and hit the bell icon for regular notifications. I'll see you soon.